Okay. Can you hear me now? Can you just tell me if you can hear me now? That would be amazing. I'm just going to wait a moment just to see if you can hear. Okay, you're saying thank you. Does that mean you can hear me? Just type into the chat and tell me, yes, I can hear you. That would be great. And then I'm going to tell you again what happened. Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, AD Label, for letting me know. What a disaster, right? This is technology for you, but that was completely my fault. I completely forgot to put the microphone on, and that's why you couldn't hear. So it wasn't on your side at all. So Paula is here and saying, yes, thanks. So let me start again. I am talking about spinal fusion today. So I'm just bringing this up. So spinal fusion surgery, especially, and even if you, so some of you might have had spinal fusion surgery. So let me know in the comments if you had. But even if you haven't, maybe it's been kind of suggested, or maybe it's something that has been kind of thrown around. So typically, it's kind of at a degree of about a Cobb angle of about 40 degrees when surgeons or when doctors will start to talk about the possibility of maybe it would be good to have surgery. So let me know if that's you. And I haven't had spinal surgery myself, but I do have a lot of clients that have gone through spinal fusion surgery. I've had people with different types of fusion, which I'm going to be talking about in a minute, because it's really, really important that you get as much information as possible about this when you want to start doing some exercise, which I would highly recommend, and when you want to practice yoga, of course. So that's what I'm talking about today. Hi, Laura. Sorry, I was just talking to myself basically here for 7 minutes. So what a nightmare. Um, yes, so I'm going to be talking about yoga mainly today, and the things that you might want to be mindful of if you've had spinal fusion surgery. You can obviously ask me your questions. If you haven't had spinal fusion, you still have questions, obviously, still put them in the chat. So I will talk a little bit about this subject, and then I will go to a general Q&A as well. Good. So Paula says she has had spinal fusion in 1982 from T4 to L4. So I don't have Mr. Spine here with me today, but T4 is in the thoracic, kind of in the middle of the thoracic, and then it goes all the way down to her lumbar spine. So, which brings me to the fact that just as there are different types of scoliosis curves, and every single scoliosis curve is individual and different. Um, the spinal fusion will obviously also be different. So in 1955, Paul Harrington um, designed the Harrington rod, which was kind of the one of the first types of spinal fusion, and they used one single metal rod. And I wonder if Paula, if you've got one rod, or if you've got two, like you can see here in the graphic here. But kind of in the 50s, 60s, 70s, that's when they were using that type of procedure. So one rod, fix the spine is fixed, and then the vertebrae will fuse to prevent movement. And the whole point of this is that the curve obviously doesn't get worse. And they actually used a little bit of traction, obviously, to make it slightly better as well. None of them, I would say, I would imagine, and I'm not a spinal surgeon, obviously, but I don't believe that any one of those people had a completely straight spine after surgery. So obviously, over time, this is what got kind of they did a lot of research, and surgery has come a long way. So the next type of surgery was this one, which you can see here, which is two rods on either side of the spine, And that allows for a little bit more movement. And they were also starting to be a bit more mindful of which vertebrae they're actually fixing and preventing from movement. So Paula, for example, is saying obviously it's T4 to L4, which is not the whole spine. So she has got some vertebrae which are not fused, which is very, very common. And Paula is saying she grew 2 inches on the day of the operation. Isn't that amazing? So yes, they would have kind of used some traction there, and then put in the rods and put in all the screws. It's quite an invasive procedure, and Paula let us know how long your recovery took. That would be really interesting to know. So she's obviously had her surgery in 1982, I think she said. Um, so the the way also the recovery time has probably it's probably become a lot less, and people recover a lot more quickly nowadays. So then obviously over time what they figured out is that if they fix especially the lumbar spine, people start to get quite a lot of problems, because obviously then there's the almost the hips can't really move properly. Um, it's basically everything is very rigid, very fixed, and you have to really figure out how you can do day-to-day movements. How do you put your washing into the washing machine? How do you kind of turn around? How do you drive? How do you turn around in your car? Because there isn't all that movement that a normal spine would have. So this is why it's really, really important um, to work with someone after surgery, just to kind of understand what you can do and what you cannot do. And I always say to anyone, focus on what you can do and just do it a little bit better. And in terms of yoga, what you really want to figure out is basically where your spine is fused and where it's not fused. So make sure you get all that information, like Paula has, from her surgeon. Good. Natalia is asking, is the surgery painful? Um, Paula is saying, I was in a plaster cast neck to pelvis for 6 months. So they don't do that nowadays anymore, fortunately. But yes, so that was a long recovery time. So she was then afterwards, on top of that, in a cast for 6 months, but I was out and back at school within 2. No one wanted to bash into me. Well, thank goodness. Thank goodness they didn't. So, is surgery painful? I can't comment on that because I haven't had surgery, but Paula, please let us know if you remember. But again, I want to say that surgery over the years, over the last 50 years, has come a long way. And from what I hear, the recovery time nowadays is much quicker. And there are also different types of surgery which are much less invasive. Um, so, for example, I don't know if anyone has heard of VBT, which is a different type of surgery. So let me know if you have. But in the meantime, so just a little reminder on that on Saturday, if you are a yoga teacher and you want to learn more about how to not only teach students with spinal fusion, but mainly scoliosis in general, so no fusion, no fused spine, and how you can make a difference for them, what poses should be avoided and which ones they can do, then do check out this workshop here, which is happening on Saturday, and it's online, it's via Zoom. And then if you are more interested in the spinal fusion subject, there is a great CPD course, and it goes over 2 mornings, end of November, beginning of December. And again, the details are in the description below, and it was designed by this fabulous lady. Her name is Caroline Friedman. Ooh, let me turn it this way. And she has gone through 3 spinal fusion surgeries, and she's written this amazing little handbook here. It's called Scoliosis Handbook, and great for those who want to exercise after spinal fusion. So Caroline is actually going to be here next week for back chat, and she is a personal trainer. So she gives us a different perspective. Obviously, I am a yoga teacher. I haven't had spinal fusion myself. She has, and she does different types of exercise. And before I actually realized that my microphone wasn't on, I was showing some of these exercises here. For example, she's got a great knowledge about, like, if you like going to the gym, what sort of equipment you should avoid. So if you're interested in this, watch the next back chat next week at 4 o'clock, because Caroline will be here and she will be talking about some of these things as well. So this is a great little resource and very, very practical as well. So, for example, she's talking about pregnancy, she's talking about traveling, the type of bed and sports, shopping for shoes is a little title I saw here, ice skating, laundry. So it's very, very handy. And again, this course that I was mentioning, the CPD course, oops, not this one, I mean, she designed it so it's very much based on that book, and you get an award as well. So you get this or certification from SimSpa and YMCA. So if you are a professional Pilates teacher, yoga teacher, physiotherapist, then personal trainer, then this might be for you. It's also great for anyone, obviously, who has had spinal fusion themselves, and for parents maybe of children who are kind of going down that route. So that's that course. All right. So let's see what Paula is saying in terms of pain. So Paula is saying, I don't remember particular pain. I was in hospital for a week, but it's totally different now. Yes, I would agree. So nowadays I hear that the recovery is much, much quicker, and that you can pretty much be back to normal after 3 months. Um, so again, it depends on obviously what type of surgery you're having. Do you think it is sometimes necessary? That's a great question. And yes, I do think it's sometimes necessary. And when it's necessary is if vital organs are affected or in danger, meaning the heart and the lungs. So if there is any collapse kind of in this area, if there is too much of a curvature in this area, then that's when surgery is highly recommended. If it's just for cosmetic reasons, meaning that if it's just, well, cosmetic reasons is a bit, I don't like that word anyway. But obviously, sometimes the main problem might be that you don't like the way the scoliosis looks. Then I would always suggest that you try everything else. You try to correct as much as possible with exercise, with just improving your posture. Surgery is not kind of a quick fix. It is a very big deal. And again, I'm sure Paula will agree to that it is not a little thing, even though the surgery has improved so much. It is a big deal. And let's talk a little bit more in terms of yoga, because unless you want to talk about something else. But that is really why we're here, obviously, today, to talk about what we might have to be mindful of when the spine is fused. So we talked already a little bit about this section of the fusion and the section of the non-fusion. So I'm always sorry, I'm taking Paula again because she's the one who told me where her fusion is. And she said it was T4 to L5, I believe, L4, it says, yes. So obviously there is a bit underneath, so in her lumbar spine, a few vertebrae which are not fused, and there are a few vertebrae at the top, at the thoracic spine and neck, which are not fused. So these are kind of the vulnerable areas of the spine with spinal fusion, because when you do a movement, let's say you turn around to get something from behind you, because for people without spinal fusion, the whole spine is involved, right? And this can be evenly distributed in the whole spine, even though that's not always the case. For somebody with spinal fusion, it will only happen in these vertebrae that are mobile. So that puts a lot of strain onto these areas. So we just have to be very, very mindful of those areas, that we don't overdo it in those parts of the spine. So areas of or yoga poses that can be tricky, for example, with somebody with spinal fusion, are twists for obvious reasons. They are forward bends, they're back bends, and side bends. So anything where a normal spine would create some movement, if it's forwards, backwards, side to side, or rotate, these are the movements that might just have to be modified for someone with spinal fusion. And again, it depends on what type of fusion you have. Some people do have a little bit of flexibility. So it depends on what exactly is going on for you, but generally your best bet is going to be staying in a neutral spine, staying in kind of a long elongated position as much as you can, and then strengthening in this area. So obviously do what you can, but don't try to go to your end range all the time. That's kind of what I'm saying. Good. Lovely. Natalia is here as well. Hello. Paula is saying actually T3 to L4. Okay. Pain-free for 30 years. Isn't that amazing? So wonderful. Amazing. But then degeneration in the lowest two vertebrae. So this kind of confirms what I just said, wasn't it? That the lower vertebrae, obviously they were the mobile ones, so they took kind of all the pressure probably. And I had no idea of the risks and the strain. There was no post-op follow-up or physio. I did a normal yoga class with twists without knowing the problem. When was this, Paula? Are you relatively new to yoga, or have you been practicing for a while? So maybe you can give us a little bit more information. And yes, that is such a shame, isn't it? And I've heard this from Caroline as well, from the author, who told me that she was given no like instructions of what she can do, what she cannot do, what she has to be mindful of. And this is really, that's why she is so passionate about this subject. And this is why she developed her CPD course. And the plan is to really to inform as many exercise instructors as possible, because yes, we need our yoga teachers to know, we need them to know what to do, what not to do with spinal fusion. We need our Pilates teachers to know, we need our physios to know, obviously, and we need our personal trainers to know as well. So it's always, everyone always says you need to go to the gym, you need to stay fit and healthy. But obviously, for those who have got a condition, who've had the surgery, there will be some kind of there will be some fear as well behind it. You don't want to make it, you don't want to hurt yourself, and actually, not to scare you, but Caroline actually did have an accident with her Harrington rod, and it snapped in half. Now, this is not supposed to happen, and I have not heard this many times that this happens, but it can happen. So, yes, you do not want to kind of go crazy about it. And this is probably because nobody had told her what she can do and what she cannot do. Lovely. Hi, Liz. So Liz is also fused with one Harrington rod, 1980, in a plaster jacket for 12 months. Wow, amazing. That is a long time. So similar fusion, a little bit lower down, but she's only had this one rod. So if we come back to my image here, obviously, as I mentioned before, in the beginning there was just one rod, and then they eventually they put in the two rods with the screws, which allows for a little bit more movement, I've been told. But the very, very old style ones are the ones with one rod, and there is probably not a lot of movement happening there. And um, Liz also wasn't given any info or physio afterwards either. This is what we want to change, right? This is why I'm here, and this is why, again, Caroline has written the book and has developed the course because yes, we want people to know, and it's really, really important to increase awareness. So Paula's saying, "Yikes!" This was about the story I was telling about Caroline. So basically, what she did, and she does say in the book that it wasn't a great idea. She basically went into a full-on back bend, and I think she went into weir pulse, so she dropped back with a Harrington rod, snapped in half. Not a great idea. She had to have another surgery. So, yes, there are obviously problems that can occur, but I would always say, first of all, get all the information about where your fusion is. And most of those who have fusion will be able to tell you straight away where it is. But also, if you are a yoga teacher or an exercise professional, find out what it is. Where is it fused? Where's it not fused? So hopefully your yoga teacher will have a little bit of knowledge of the spine and will be able to give you some tips as well. But the areas that are not fused are the ones that are vulnerable. Um, so this is kind of the tricky areas. You almost don't have to worry so much about the rest of the spine because it's fixed, unless you do something like what I said Caroline did and went completely against it. So as long as you respect the Harrington rod, or as long as you respect the fusion, and you take care of the mobile parts of the spine, you're fine. And you can do, you can go to a general yoga class. You can go to a general Pilates class and just really make sure that you listen to the sensations of, what does it feel like, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. So in terms of movements, I would always say, even if you can do it, what is the purpose and how does it feel in your body? Do you have to do it? So what I mean by that is, especially if you have movement in your lower back, for example, but your thoracic spine is rigid, there might be things that you can do, for example, in terms of twists, but it might not always be a good idea to go to your full range of twisting. Um, Things like, sit-ups, curl-ups, and things like this. Again, usually not a good idea depending on what fusion you have, but think about how much pressure does it put on the areas that are mobile in your spine. And again, Caroline talks a lot about this in her book as well, of kind of avoiding the pressure. And then just one more thing that I wanted to say about this subject is that if you have a kind of older style fusion, how do you look from the side? And I would really like to know, Paula and Liz, if you're still here, if you have quite a flat back, or do you still have curvatures from looking from the side? So I find this really, really interesting. And obviously, if you've been watching my back chat here, I talk about this a lot. So scoliosis is obviously a sideward curvature of the spine accompanied with rotation. But then looking from the side of someone, looking from the side, the spine does have natural curvatures, right? So there's an inward curve in the neck, there's an outward curve in the thoracic spine, inward curve in the lower back, and then outward again at the sacrum. So it does look kind of snaky looking from the side. With spinal fusion, some of that is taken out because obviously they are doing this whole traction thing and they correcting the curvature, but they're also correcting the natural curves of the spine with that, and not correcting, not in a good way, but kind of in a bad way. So I'm just waiting to see if Paula or Liz would be able to tell me if that has been the case for them. So with that, usually comes sometimes a little bit of pain. So Paula is saying rib hump on the right stays as before. The left lumbar now more pronounced in recent years, though not to other people. And my right shoulder now twists just a little forward and to the right. So yes, so these are the kind of asymmetries that are still there, even though Paula has had her spinal fusion surgery. Her spine is not completely straight, and even if it was completely straight, the muscles, they are not going to be completely, symmetrical all of the sudden. So there is a lot more going on there. We're not just a skeleton. There's obviously also connective tissue around it. And I have heard many times that even with people who've had their corrective surgery, that the rib hump gets worse over time, that there's more unevenness in the shoulders, for example, over time. So it's not a complete solution, even though, as we already said, it might be necessary for some people and it might be a good idea to have. It's not definitive, so it doesn't stop there, and you always have to work on it. Good. So sorry, to the left. So rib hump on the right stayed as before. Left lumbar. So that's obviously what they couldn't take out. And sometimes they can do this nowadays, but I don't think it's like completely corrected. And that has something to do with the rotation. And my right shoulder. Okay, so you're saying my right shoulder now twists just a little forward and to the left. When doing yoga, I really need to focus on strengthening lower left and elongating lower right and upper left. Yes, and for somebody with spinal fusion, so obviously most of you know that I have got a lot of practice videos on my YouTube channel here for different types of curvatures. For someone with a spinal fusion, please make sure you pick the Spinal Fusion playlist, because all the others, they're all aimed at people that have not had spinal fusion, right? And they will be able to maneuver a little bit more, and they will be able to apply those principles of yoga for scoliosis, where we're kind of correcting ourselves into a different type of shape. And with a spinal fusion, obviously your Harrington rod or your rod prevents you from doing a lot of this stuff. So if you are trying to do this, you can cause problems. Stay away from asymmetrical things. Stay away from, Dr. Fishman's side plank thing. That is not for you. That's not an approach for you. This is really designed for people who have not had the corrective surgery. So for you, it's all about improving your function, getting stronger, as Paula says, making the most out of the shape that you're in. And with the shoulders, you can do a few things. So there you still have shoulder movement, obviously, Paula, haven't you? So there are still things that you can do, and it's just about finding what it is that is possible, but still respecting the limitations of the rod. Um, So let me know if that helps at all. Let me know if you've got any more questions about this. I'm hoping that gives you a little bit of some inspiration maybe, and hopefully some ideas for your yoga practice. Again, the best thing is obviously to work with someone one-on-one as usual, um, to get an idea of what it is maybe for your specific needs, your spinal fusion, your general fitness, and your level of experience. Um, find a group class where the teacher is accommodating and where they are able to offer modifications for you. So giving you ideas of how you could maintain a neutral spine and not flex, bend, rotate in the different yoga poses. And this is absolutely possible. You just sometimes have to um, be a little bit more creative and think about how we can make this still possible with slight modifications. Good. So Liz is saying, I still have a rib hump and have had much increased pain in recent years. I think I still have my natural curves. Okay, that's interesting. So again, let's see, where was your fusion? It was a little bit lower down, isn't it? I would be surprised if you had much of a lumbar curvature. I would imagine they would have taken some of that out. And the thoracic is also usually, when you have a thoracic fusion, they make it quite flat as well, but it depends. Um, so pain is increased, Liz is saying. So very, very important, obviously, to educate yourself on what you can do and what you cannot do. I believe that yoga is not only helpful physically, obviously, but hugely helpful emotionally and mentally. We do know that there is a connection, a body-mind connection. We know, I don't know, but I believe that there is a body-mind connection, and that our emotional state is directly linked to our physical state. That emotions can absolutely affect what's going on in the body and how we experience pain. I find restorative yoga super helpful. I find working with the breath super helpful. Just kind of focusing on, again, focusing on all the things that you can do, and you can definitely breathe, and the breath is very, very powerful, and you can make such a big difference. Good. So I hope that this is helpful at all. Again, if you are a yoga teacher, then come on Saturday. It's going to be fun. It's a 3-hour workshop for yoga teachers, and this will be covering mainly yoga poses, obviously, for people with scoliosis, everything that you have to know about this. We talk a little bit about spinal fusion, but the main focus is on kind of scoliosis pre-surgery. And then the bigger course is this one, the CPD course. If you are a yoga teacher, Pilates teacher, health professional, personal trainer, or somebody who has got spinal fusion and you want to really know about exercises in general, not just yoga, but going to the gym and things like this, and then make sure you sign up for that one. So all the links are in the description as always. Good. So I love that Paula and Liz obviously have connected. Make sure that you are in the Facebook group, the Yoga for Scoliosis community, where you can keep talking, obviously, as well. So Paula saying I was in a lot of knee pain in 2016. Pilates really helped. I gave up yoga as my teacher, didn't know enough. Yes, I think it's really important that you find someone who knows. I go to a class specifically for wonky people, and the pain level shot down. Brilliant. Good. Thanks, Christine. Helpful to have the reminders of the moves I should steer clear of. Yes, I'm sure, Paula, you have probably by now figured out which ones you can do, which ones you can't do. Um, good. Lovely. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you especially to Liz and Paula for sharing your experiences. If you're watching this on the replay, I think you can still look at the chat. So have a look at that. I tried to read out the questions as well. As always, let me know if there's anything you want to see me cover next time on Backchat next week. Sorry, not next week, but next week. I've got Caroline on. So that's the 18th of November at 4 o'clock UK time. Caroline will be talking about her book, Spinal Fusion, and especially things like, working with weights, going to the gym, things like that to after surgery. All right. So thank you so much, guys, and see you very soon.